The twin suns of Kepler 442c cast their amber glow across the endless expanse of crystalline sand, where Dr. Elena Vasquez crouched beside what appeared to be just another weathered stone formation. In the year 2847, humanity had spread across 17 galaxies, yet somehow managed to remain perpetually surprised by what they found buried beneath alien soil. "Martinez, hand me the quantum resonance scanner." Elena called to her assistant, wiping sweat from her brow, despite the climate-controlled field suit. The archaeological expedition to this remote desert planet had been her pet project for 3 years, funded by the Terran Historical Preservation Society, and her own stubborn conviction that something significant lay hidden beneath these dunes. The scanner hummed to life, its blue light revealing subsurface anomalies that made Elena's heart race. Geometric patterns far too regular to be natural extended deep into the planetary crust. After 47 years of digging up pottery shards and ancient refuse pits, she had finally found something extraordinary. "Dr. Vasquez." Martinez said, his voice tight with excitement. "These readings are off the charts. The crystalline matrix down there is unlike anything in our databases." Elena nodded, her mind already racing through excavation protocols. The dig site buzzed with activity as her team of 12 specialists deployed their equipment, each more sophisticated than anything available just a decade prior. Gravitational lifters cleared away millennia of accumulated sand, while molecular disruptors carefully carved through sedimentary layers, revealing glimpses of a structure that defied conventional archaeological understanding. 3 days into the excavation, they uncovered the entrance. It wasn't a door in any conventional sense, but rather a seamless section of wall that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The material appeared to be some form of crystallized metal, its surface covered in intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could properly process. "The electromagnetic readings are spiking," reported Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's physicist. "Whatever's behind this barrier is generating its own energy field." Elena approached the wall cautiously, her scanner detecting no harmful radiation, but registering energy patterns that made no scientific sense. As she reached out to touch the surface, the wall simply vanished, dissolving into motes of light that danced briefly in the air before fading away. The chamber beyond took Elena's breath away. The room stretched into darkness beyond their lighting equipment's reach, its walls covered in the same impossible geometric patterns. But it was the object in the center that commanded attention, a sword, suspended in mid-air, above a pedestal of the same crystalline material, surrounded by slowly rotating rings of pure energy. "My God," whispered Martinez. "It's beautiful." The weapon was indeed magnificent. Its blade seemed to be forged from concentrated starlight, shifting between silver and gold, with each subtle movement of the energy rings. The crossguard was inscribed with symbols that seemed to move when observed peripherally, and the grip was wrapped in what appeared to be condensed space itself, dark and infinite. Elena's archaeological training screamed warnings about touching unknown artifacts, but something deeper, more primal, urged her forward. The sword seemed to call to her, not with sound, but with a resonance that vibrated through her very bones. "Elena, the energy readings are going crazy," Dr. Kim warned. "I'm detecting gravitational fluctuations and what looks like localized space-time distortion." But Elena was already reaching for the weapon. The moment her fingers closed around the grip, the universe exploded into consciousness. Information flooded her mind like a tsunami of cosmic knowledge. She saw the weapon's history forged in the heart of a dying star by beings whose existence predated the formation of galaxies, designed as a tool of absolute authority for entities that humans had mistaken for gods throughout their brief history. The Etherian blade, as her mind suddenly knew it was called, was one of 7 weapons created to maintain order among the post-material civilizations that governed the known universe. And now it belonged to her. The energy rings around the pedestal flared and died. Emergency lighting activated throughout the chamber as every piece of electronic equipment in the dig site simultaneously overloaded. In the sudden darkness, Elena could see the sword glowing with its own inner light, its power now fully awakened after eons of dormancy. "Elena," Martinez's voice echoed through the chamber. "Are you all right?" She was more than all right. She was transformed. The weapon had bonded with her in ways that transcended physical contact. She could feel its consciousness, ancient and patient, analyzing her worthiness and finding her adequate. It was almost insulting being deemed merely adequate by a sword, but Elena supposed that was better than being rejected entirely. "I'm fine," she called back, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. "But I think we need to get out of here. Now." The urgency in her voice wasn't born from archaeological caution, but from knowledge that had been burned into her consciousness by the blade. Somewhere, in the vast expanse of space, entities of unimaginable power had just detected the weapon's awakening. The Divine Council, as they called themselves, had maintained their grip on universal order for millions of years, and they would not tolerate a human wielding one of their tools. The team evacuated the chamber with remarkable efficiency, though Elena noticed that the Etherian blade made their equipment work better rather than worse. Gravitational lifters that had been struggling with heavy loads suddenly operated at peak efficiency. Communication devices that had been plagued with interference now transmitted with crystal clarity. The weapon seemed to actively improve everything around it, as if optimizing the universe was simply its natural state. Back at base camp, Elena sat in her command tent, staring at the sword she had laid across her desk. In proper lighting, it looked almost mundane, like an elaborate prop from a historical drama. But she could feel its power humming beneath the surface, vast and patient and utterly alien. Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Kim entered the tent, tablet in hand, and expression troubled. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from the chamber. Whatever that thing is, it's not just advanced technology. It's operating on principles that violate several fundamental laws of physics." Elena nodded, unsurprised. The knowledge the sword had imparted made it clear that the entities who created it existed in a state beyond traditional matter and energy. They had transcended physical limitations millennia ago, becoming beings of pure consciousness and will. The weapon was a bridge between their ethereal existence and the material universe, allowing them to impose their will on reality itself. Dr. Martinez burst into the tent, his face pale with excitement and terror. "We're receiving a transmission. It's not using any known communication protocol." The voice that filled the tent seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, speaking in perfectly accented Terran standard, despite having no apparent source. "Human designation Elena Vasquez. You have appropriated property of the Divine Council. Surrender the Etherian blade immediately, and your termination will be swift and painless." Elena felt the sword's consciousness stir, almost amused by the threat. Through their bond, she sensed its assessment of the speaker, a low-level servitor, barely more than an animated thought given form. The real powers had not yet deigned to notice her existence. "I'm afraid I can't do that," Elena replied, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "This weapon was abandoned on a dead world. By the laws of archaeological salvage, it belongs to whoever found it." The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute before the voice returned, now carrying undertones of genuine confusion. "Archaeological salvage. You claim ownership through discovery." "That's correct. If the Divine Council wanted to maintain possession, they should have posted a guard." Elena could almost hear cosmic gears grinding as the servitor attempted to process this unprecedented situation. Throughout their eons of existence, the Divine Council had never encountered a species that applied property law to weapons of divine authority. "This matter requires consultation. Do not attempt to leave your current location. Further instructions will follow." The presence vanished, leaving Elena's team in stunned silence. Did you just tell a god that Finders Keepers applies to divine artifacts? Martinez asked weakly. Something like that, Elena replied, though she was beginning to understand that the situation was far more complex than a simple property dispute. Through her connection to the sword, she could sense ripples spreading across the dimensional fabric of space. News of a human wielding an Etherian blade was racing through the cosmic community at speeds that made light look stationary. Within hours, the first visitors arrived. They materialized in the middle of the camp as pillars of coherent light, 5 beings that appeared to be wearing elaborate robes made of flowing energy. Elena could see immediately that these were servitors of a higher order than the one who had made the initial contact, but still far below the true powers of the Divine Council. Human, Elena Vasquez. The central figure spoke its voice carrying harmonics that made reality shimmer slightly. You will surrender the Etherian blade and submit to memory adjustment. This incident will be recorded as a natural geological event. Elena stood slowly, the sword automatically flowing into her hand like liquid metal. The moment her fingers closed around the grip, the servitors stumbled backward, as if struck by a physical force. I don't think so, Elena said calmly. The lead servitor raised what might have been a hand energy, crackling between its fingers. You cannot comprehend the forces you are defying, mortal. The Etherian blade is not meant for beings of your limitations. The sword responded before Elena could form a conscious thought. Reality twisted around the servitors, wrapping them in a cocoon of reversed causality. One moment, they were preparing to attack the next. They found themselves trapped in a temporal loop, forever reaching for weapons they could never quite grasp. Apparently, it disagrees, Elena observed, as the servitors flickered and vanished, banished back to whatever dimension they had emerged from. The demonstration of the sword's power sent shockwaves through the camp. Half of Elena's team wanted to contact Earth immediately and request military support. The other half argued for attempting to establish diplomatic relations with the Divine Council. Elena found herself caught between their fear and their excitement, trying to process the implications of wielding a weapon that could casually defeat beings most humans would consider gods. The argument became moot when Earth contacted them first. Dr. Vasquez. Admiral Sarah Chen's image flickered on the communication screen, her expression grim. We've been monitoring some unusual energy signatures from your location. Central Command wants a full report immediately. Elena considered her options carefully. The sword's knowledge suggested that involving the Terran military would likely escalate the situation beyond any hope of peaceful resolution. But keeping Earth uninformed seemed equally dangerous. Admiral, we've made a discovery of unprecedented significance. I'm transmitting our findings now, but I need to emphasize that this requires careful handling. We may be dealing with entities that consider themselves the rightful rulers of the universe. The data package Elena sent contained her team's scans of the chamber recordings of the servitor encounters and a carefully edited version of what she had learned from the sword. She omitted certain details that she instinctively knew would lead to catastrophic decisions by military planners. Admiral Chen's response when it came 6 hours later was predictably military in nature. Dr. Vasquez, you are hereby ordered to secure the artifact and prepare for immediate extraction. The Terran Defense Force is deploying a full battle group to your location. Elena closed the communication channel and turned to her team, who had been listening with growing alarm. This is going to get very ugly very quickly, she announced. The military thinks they can handle divine entities with conventional weapons. The Divine Council thinks they can intimidate humans into submission through displays of power. Both sides are about to learn how wrong they are. As if summoned by her words, space above the dig site began to distort. 3 figures descended from the sky, each radiating power that made the earlier servitors look like flickering candles next to fusion reactors. These were not mere servants, but actual members of the Divine Council entities that had not bothered to manifest in physical reality for geological ages. Elena felt the Etherian blade resonate with recognition and excitement. Through their bond, she sensed that the weapon had been waiting for this moment, eager to test itself against its creators, after eons of dormancy. The three beings landed with earth-shaking force, their forms shifting between geometric patterns and vaguely humanoid shapes as they struggled to compress their multi-dimensional existence into a space human senses could process. The child of dust. The central figure spoke its voice, carrying enough power to crack stone. You hold that which was never meant for mortal hands. Return it willingly, and we may yet find a use for your species in the cosmic order. Elena raised the sword, its blade now blazing with power that matched the divine entities before her. I think we need to discuss terms first. The Divine Council member on the left laughed, a sound like galaxies colliding. Terms: you would negotiate with forces that shaped the universe before your sun existed. Why not? Elena replied, drawing on the sword's knowledge to project calm confidence she didn't entirely feel. You obviously need this weapon back, or you wouldn't have come personally. That suggests I have something you want, which makes this a transaction rather than a simple theft. The three beings exchanged glances that somehow conveyed entire conversations in the space between heartbeats. Elena could sense their confusion and growing concern. In their experience, lesser species either cowered in terror or attacked in futile rage when confronted with divine power. Cool-headed negotiation was unprecedented. Very well, the central figure said eventually. State your terms, mortal. Elena had been thinking about this moment since the sword first filled her mind with cosmic knowledge. She understood now that humanity stood at a crossroads, balanced between remaining an insignificant species confined to a few galaxies, or taking their place among the true powers of the universe. The weapon in her hands was both key and catalyst for that transformation. First, recognition. Humanity is no longer to be treated as a primitive species. We're players in the cosmic community now, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The Divine Council member on the right hissed, its form flickering with indignation. Impossible. Your species lacks the wisdom to wield cosmic authority. Second, Elena continued, ignoring the outburst. Technology transfer. We want access to post-material sciences, the same knowledge you've shared with other species you consider worthy. Your demands are preposterous, the left figure declared. We have maintained universal order for millions of years. We will not have it disrupted by an ambitious child playing with forces beyond her comprehension. Elena felt the sword's amusement at the characterization. Through their bond, she sensed its assessment of the situation. The Divine Council was far more concerned about her possession of the weapon than they were letting on. Something about her wielding it effectively had implications that terrified them. Third and final. Elena said, raising the glowing blade slightly, a treaty. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over our territories, and a mutual non-interference pact. You don't meddle in human affairs, we don't meddle in yours. The central figure stepped forward, its form solidifying into something almost recognizably humanoid. And if we refuse your terms, Elena smiled, channeling the weapon's ancient confidence. Then I keep the sword, and we see how well your cosmic order holds up when humans start reverse engineering divine technology. The threat hung in the air like a physical presence. Elena could sense the rapid communication passing between the three beings, entire arguments compressed into quantum fluctuations that the sword helped her partially decode. They were genuinely afraid, she realized. Not of her personally, but of what she represented, the possibility that their carefully maintained hierarchy might be disrupted by a species they had dismissed as irrelevant. The weapon has chosen you, the central figure said, finally, its tone suggesting this was a fact of considerable significance. This was unexpected. Unexpected? How? Elena asked, though the sword was already feeding her the answer. The Etherian blade and its 6 siblings had been designed with specific criteria for wielders. Only beings capable of transcending their original limitations could form a true bond with the weapons. The Divine Council had assumed that no material species could meet those criteria. The Etherian blade was forged to recognize and serve those who have achieved true consciousness. The right figure explained reluctantly. It should not respond to a being still bound by physical limitations. Elena felt the sword's sardonic amusement. The weapon had recognized in her something the Divine Council had missed: the potential for growth beyond current limitations. Humanity might be young and primitive by cosmic standards, but they possessed something the post-material entities had forgotten in their eons of existence: the drive to constantly evolve and improve. Perhaps, Elena suggested carefully, your assessment of human limitations was incomplete. The three beings fell into another rapid consultation, their forms flickering with agitation. Elena could sense their dilemma according to their own criteria. Her successful bonding with the weapon meant that humanity had achieved a level of consciousness that qualified them for admission to the cosmic community. But accepting that fact would mean acknowledging that their stewardship of universal order was no longer absolute. The standoff was interrupted by the arrival of the Terran battle group. 16 capital ships dropped out of hyperspace with weapons charged, and shields raised their arrival, calculated to project maximum military intimidation. Elena sighed, recognizing that the delicate balance of her negotiation was about to be shattered by well-meaning but catastrophically inappropriate military intervention. Admiral Chen to ground team. The communication system crackled. Stand clear of the entities. We are prepared to provide fire support. Admiral, belay that order, Elena shouted into her communicator. Do not engage. These beings could destroy your entire fleet without effort. But it was too late. The lead battleship's captain, apparently interpreting Elena's shouted warning as a sign that she was under duress, opened fire with the ship's primary plasma cannons. The energy beams struck the leftmost Divine Council member and simply ceased to exist, absorbed into its form, without causing the slightest disturbance. The being turned its attention skyward, and Elena felt the Etherian blade's knowledge provide her with a terrifying understanding of what was about to happen. No, she raised the sword, its power flaring as she tried to intercede. They don't understand. The Divine Council member paused, its form crackling with barely contained energy. Your military forces attack us with primitive weapons. The time for negotiation has ended. Wait, Elena stepped between the angry entity and the fleet above. They're responding to a perceived threat to me. It's a defensive reaction, not an act of aggression. Their intent is irrelevant, the central figure declared. They have committed an act of war against the Divine Council. Elena felt the weight of two civilizations balanced on the edge of catastrophe. The sword's knowledge made it clear that the Divine Council's retaliation would not be limited to the ships that had fired on them. They would likely sterilize every human world as an object lesson to other species who might consider challenging cosmic authority. I invoke the right of trial by combat, Elena said quickly, the words coming from the sword's ancient memory of cosmic law. The three beings froze, their forms flickering with surprise. You invoke what? The right figure asked. Trial by combat, an ancient law that even the Divine Council must honor. My actions with the sword constitute a formal challenge to your authority. By cosmic tradition, such challenges must be settled by single combat between champions. Elena could sense the beings' rapid consultation, their shock at having forgotten laws laid down when the universe was young. The right of trial by combat was, indeed, part of the fundamental framework that governed interactions between cosmic powers, though it hadn't been invoked in so long that even entities as ancient as the Divine Council had nearly forgotten its existence. The law is technically valid, the central figure admitted grudgingly. But you cannot seriously believe you could stand against a member of the Divine Council in single combat. Elena raised the Etherian blade, feeling its power flow through her like liquid lightning. I'm willing to find out. The left figure laughed, though there was no humor in the sound. Very well, mortal. If you wish to die dramatically, we shall accommodate you. I will serve as champion for the Divine Council. And the terms, Elena asked, though the sword was already providing her with the traditional framework. If you defeat our champion, humanity shall be granted the status and recognition you requested. If you lose, your species forfeits all claim to cosmic significance and submits to our guidance in perpetuity. Elena nodded, accepting terms that would determine the fate of humanity. Through her connection to the sword, she could sense the weapon's confidence in their chances, though it also conveyed a warning the battle ahead would push both of them to their absolute limits. The combat arena materialized around them, a sphere of crystallized space-time that would contain the energies about to be unleashed. Elena found herself facing the leftmost Divine Council member, whose form had now solidified into something resembling a 12-foot-tall warrior made of condensed starlight. I am Zephyrian the Eternal. The entity declared, manifesting a weapon of its own, a spear that seemed to be forged from the concept of piercing itself. I have maintained cosmic order since before your galaxy was born. Prepare yourself for obliteration, child. Elena settled into a combat stance, the Etherean blade humming with anticipation. She had never been trained for sword fighting, but the weapon itself contained the accumulated combat experience of every being who had ever wielded it. As Zephyrian charged, time seemed to slow, and Elena felt her consciousness merge fully with the ancient blade. The battle that followed redefined Elena's understanding of what combat could be. They were not merely exchanging physical blows, but warping reality itself with each strike. Zephyrian's spear carved rifts in space-time, while the Etherean blade sealed them with threads of crystallized possibility. The entity's attacks carried the weight of eons, but Elena found herself matching them with borrowed skill and the weapon's inexhaustible power. Impossible! Zephyrian snarled as Elena parried a thrust that should have sundered her molecules. You are merely human. Merely human, Elena agreed, pressing her counterattack. But I'm a human with a very good sword. The Etherean blade's power was not simply overwhelming force, but perfect efficiency. Where Zephyrian expended vast energies to reshape reality, the sword found elegant solutions that achieved the same results with minimal effort. Elena began to understand that this was the weapon's true nature, not a tool of destruction, but an instrument of optimization designed to find the most efficient path to any desired outcome. As the battle progressed, she could see that Zephyrian was beginning to tire. The entity's form flickered as it struggled to maintain coherence under the sword's relentless precision. Elena pressed her advantage, not seeking to destroy her opponent, but to demonstrate the futility of further resistance. The end came suddenly. Zephyrian overextended in a desperate final attack, and Elena simply stepped aside, allowing the entity's own momentum to carry it past her, while the Etherean blade traced a delicate pattern in the air. Zephyrian's form destabilized its consciousness, scattered across multiple dimensions, before slowly reforming in a diminished state. I yield, the entity gasped, its voice now carrying undertones of something Elena had never expected to hear from a cosmic power respect. The arena dissolved, returning them to the surface of Kepler 442c, where Elena's team and the two remaining Divine Council members waited. Elena could see the shock on the faces of her colleagues, while the cosmic entities radiated a complex mixture of disbelief, concern, and something that might have been approval. The terms are met, the central figure declared formally. Humanity has proven its worthiness through trial by combat. We acknowledge your species' claim to cosmic significance. Elena lowered the sword, feeling exhaustion creep through her bones as the adrenaline of battle faded. And the technology transfer will be arranged, the right figure confirmed. Though we suggest you proceed carefully. The knowledge we will share can transform civilizations or destroy them depending on how it is applied. We'll be careful, Elena promised, though she suspected that defining careful would prove to be an ongoing challenge for humanity. The Divine Council members began to fade their forms, becoming translucent, as they prepared to return to their dimensional realm. One final matter, the central figure said. The Etherian blade has chosen you as its permanent wielder. This bond cannot be severed while you live. You have become, in effect, humanity's first cosmic champion. Elena nodded, accepting the responsibility, along with the honor. Through her connection to the sword, she could sense the vast network of entities and civilizations that made up the cosmic community. Humanity was about to take its first steps into a larger universe, and she would be their guide and protector on that journey. As the Divine Council members vanished completely, Elena turned to face her team and the fleet above. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communicator, demanding an immediate explanation of what had just occurred. Dr. Vasquez, what is your status? Our sensors detected energy discharges consistent with weapons of mass destruction. All clear, Admiral, Elena replied, settling the Etherian blade across her shoulders. But I think we're going to need a much bigger conference room for the briefing. Dr. Kim approached her cautiously, scanner in hand. Elena, the energy readings from that sword are off the charts. What exactly did you find down there? Elena looked up at the alien stars, visible in the darkening sky, feeling the weight of cosmic responsibility settling around her like a mantle. I found humanity's future, Sarah, and apparently our future found me. The communication from Earth arrived as Elena's team was packing up the dig site. President Martinez himself appeared on the quantum communicator, flanked by the Secretary of Defense and the Director of Cosmic Affairs. Dr. Vasquez. The President began his expression grave. Preliminary reports suggest you've made contact with entities claiming to be gods. We need you to return to Earth immediately for debriefing. With respect, Mr. President, Elena replied carefully. I don't think that's advisable. The situation is still developing and moving too quickly, could destabilize our new relationship with the cosmic community. Cosmic community. The Secretary of Defense leaned forward aggressively. Doctor, you're talking about potential threats to human security. That weapon needs to be secured and studied by military specialists. Elena felt the Etherian blade's amusement at the suggestion. The weapon had made it clear that it would function only for her, and any attempt to separate them would likely result in its permanent deactivation. Secretary Williams, the weapon has bonded with me on a quantum level. Military study would be pointless and potentially dangerous. We need to approach this situation with diplomacy, not force. The 3-hour discussion that followed tested Elena's patience and diplomatic skills. Earth's leadership was struggling to process the implications of humanity's sudden elevation to cosmic significance. Some officials wanted to immediately begin military preparations for potential divine intervention. Others pushed for aggressive exploration of the technological opportunities that had been promised. A few wise voices advocated for careful, measured responses, but they were outnumbered by those who saw the situation primarily in terms of either threat or opportunity. In the end, Elena negotiated a compromise. She would return to Earth, but with full authority to serve as humanity's primary liaison with the cosmic community. The Etherian blade would remain with her, and any research into its capabilities would be conducted under her supervision. Most importantly, all contact with post-material entities would be channeled through her office to prevent the kind of miscommunication that had nearly triggered a cosmic war. The journey back to Earth gave Elena time to process what had happened to her. Through her bond with the sword, she could sense the vast tapestry of cosmic civilization species that had transcended physical matter entirely, others that existed as pure energy, and a few that had found ways to merge consciousness with the fundamental forces of the universe. Humanity was about to join this community as its youngest and most unpredictable member. The Etherian blade fed her knowledge in carefully measured doses, revealing secrets of advanced technology and cosmic law as she became ready to understand them. She learned about dimensional engineering, consciousness transfer, and energy manipulation techniques that would revolutionize human science. But the weapon also conveyed warnings about the responsibilities that came with such knowledge. Power. The sword seemed to whisper in her mind, was not simply the ability to impose one's will on the universe. True power lay in understanding when not to use that ability, in finding solutions that enhanced, rather than dominated, in building, rather than conquering. When Elena finally arrived on Earth, she found a world in the grip of what media outlets were calling cosmic fever. News of humanity's contact with divine entities had leaked despite official attempts at secrecy, leading to everything from religious revivals to stock market crashes to street protests demanding immediate access to alien technology. The formal introduction of the Etherian blade to Earth's scientific community took place in the newly constructed Cosmic Relations Center in Geneva. Elena stood before an assembly of the world's most brilliant minds, holding a weapon that represented humanity's passage into a larger universe. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we stand at a threshold that our species has been approaching for centuries. The question is no longer whether we are alone in the universe, but whether we are worthy to join those who have come before us." The demonstration that followed left the assembled scientists speechless. Elena allowed the sword to reveal some of its simpler capabilities, converting matter to energy, with perfect efficiency, creating localized gravitational fields, and generating protective barriers that could deflect attacks from virtually any known weapon. Each display was carefully calculated to inspire rather than intimidate, showing humanity what they could become rather than what they might face. Dr. James Harrison, Elena's former professor and the current head of the International Archaeological Consortium, raised his hand during the question period. "Elena, what you're showing us suggests that our understanding of physics is fundamentally incomplete. How do we even begin to integrate this knowledge into our existing scientific framework?" Elena smiled, remembering her own overwhelming first encounter with the sword's knowledge. "We start slowly, Professor. The blade will share its knowledge as we prove ready to handle it responsibly. Think of it as a graduated curriculum in cosmic science." "And what's to stop other powers from trying to take this weapon from us?" asked General Patricia Williams, the newly appointed Director of Cosmic Defense. "The same thing that stopped the Divine Council," Elena replied. "The Etherian blade chooses its wielder based on consciousness, not force. It would be useless to anyone who tried to claim it through violence or coercion." The months that followed Elena's return transformed human civilization in ways both profound and subtle. The promised technology transfer began with relatively simple innovations: improved energy storage, more efficient transportation systems, and medical advances that promised to extend human lifespan indefinitely. But the real changes were philosophical and social. Humanity began to see itself not as the dominant species of a single planet, but as junior members of a cosmic community that spanned billions of years and countless galaxies. This shift in perspective led to unprecedented cooperation between nations, as Earth's leaders recognized that their traditional conflicts were meaningless in the context of cosmic civilization. Elena found herself at the center of these changes, serving as translator between human understanding and cosmic knowledge. The Etherian blade continued to reveal its secrets. Gradually, each new revelation carefully timed to humanity's growing ability to handle advanced concepts responsibly. 6 months after first contact, Elena received a visitor that marked humanity's formal acceptance into the cosmic community. The being that materialized in her office appeared as an elderly human female, though Elena could sense the vast consciousness that had chosen to compress itself into such a familiar form. "I am Lirelai of the Synthesis," the entity introduced herself. "I serve as liaison between the Divine Council and newly emergent species. I have come to welcome humanity to cosmic consciousness." Elena rose respectfully, the Etherian blade at her side, humming with recognition. "We're honored by your visit. I hope we've proven worthy of the trust placed in us." Lyra Lay smiled, her expression genuinely warm. More than worthy. Your species' rapid adaptation to cosmic perspective has impressed even the most skeptical members of the Council. We have decided to accelerate your integration into the broader community. What does that mean practically speaking? Elena asked. Formal representation in the Cosmic Assembly, access to interdimensional transportation networks, and eligibility for participation in community projects of galactic significance. In short, full membership in the civilization that governs the universe. Elena felt a surge of pride and trepidation. Humanity had achieved in mere months what most species required centuries to accomplish. But she also understood that their rapid advancement came with equally rapid responsibilities. There will be challenges, Lyra Lay continued, as if reading her thoughts. Your species' tendency toward individual initiative sometimes conflicts with cosmic consensus. But we believe that diversity of perspective strengthens our community rather than weakening it. Over the following weeks, Elena worked with Lyra Lay to establish protocols for humanity's integration into cosmic civilization. Earth would maintain its sovereignty while accepting certain responsibilities for maintaining cosmic order within their local galactic region. Human explorers would be granted access to dimensional pathways that would allow them to visit other cosmic civilizations, while Earth itself would begin hosting representatives from post-material species interested in studying humanity's unique approach to consciousness development. The changes were not without controversy. Traditional religious leaders struggled to reconcile their doctrines with the reality of a universe populated by beings that met most conventional definitions of divinity. Political leaders found their power structures challenged by citizens who increasingly saw themselves as part of a cosmic community rather than subjects of terrestrial nations. Scientists grappled with paradigm shifts that made their previous understanding of reality seem quaint and limited. But humanity adapted, as it always had. Within a year of Elena's discovery of the Etherian blade, Earth had become a hub of interdimensional commerce and cultural exchange. Human artists created works that incorporated cosmic perspectives, while human scientists made breakthroughs that surprised even their post-material colleagues. Elena often found herself standing on the observation deck of the new Geneva Cosmic Relations Center, looking up at stars that no longer seemed distant and unreachable. The Etherian blade rested comfortably at her side, its ancient consciousness now fully integrated with her own. Regrets? Lyra Lay asked, materializing beside her during one of these contemplative moments. Elena considered the question carefully. Her life had been irrevocably changed from the moment she first touched the sword. She could never return to being a simple archaeologist, content with uncovering pottery shards and ancient ruins. The weight of cosmic responsibility would be hers for as long as the blade chose to remain bonded with her. No regrets, she said finally, though I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had left the sword where I found it. Lyra Lay's laughter carried harmonics that reminded Elena of distant stellar phenomena. You could not have left it, Elena Vasquez. The Etherian blade had been waiting for you specifically for longer than your species has existed. Your discovery of it was not chance, but destiny fulfilling itself. Elena turned to look at her cosmic colleague. Destiny. The universe has a way of providing what is needed when it is needed most. The cosmic community had grown static, set in patterns established millions of years ago. We needed the disruption that only a young dynamic species could provide. Humanity's arrival has already begun to change us in ways we did not expect. Elena smiled, understanding at last her true role in the cosmic order. She was not just humanity's representative to the gods, but the catalyst for a new age of cosmic evolution. The sword at her side hummed with approval, its ancient consciousness pleased with the path they had chosen together. As she watched the stars, Elena could sense the vast network of civilizations that connected them, species and entities working together to maintain and improve the universal order. Humanity had found its place in that network, not through conquest or submission, but through the simple act of reaching for knowledge and accepting the responsibilities that came with it. The future stretched ahead of them, vast and full of possibilities. There would be challenges as humanity continued to grow into their cosmic role conflicts to mediate and problems to solve. But Elena faced that future with confidence, knowing that her species had proven itself worthy of the trust placed in them. The Etherian blade pulsed gently against her consciousness, sharing her contentment. Together, they had forged a new path for humanity among the stars, and together, they would guard and guide their species as it took its place among the cosmic powers that shaped the universe itself. In the distance, a dimensional gateway shimmered to life, disgorging a delegation of crystalline beings from a galaxy humanity had not yet learned to name. Elena straightened, preparing to welcome yet another group of cosmic citizens to Earth, secure in the knowledge that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning.